It was the kind of morning you wouldn't think much about if you didn't know what was coming. The sun was just starting to climb over the horizon, casting a soft golden light over the neighborhood. The birds were chirping like they always did, and the streets were empty, save for a few early risers jogging by and the occasional car rolling down the cul-de-sac. Nothing about this place ever screamed excitement, which is exactly why I was here. You see, on the surface, Lincoln Ridge seemed like one of those sleepy, picture-perfect suburban areas. Nice lawns, neat houses, sidewalks perfect for family strolls, and the kind of neighborhood where you can leave your front door unlocked without a second thought. But that all changed the moment Karen set her sights on my Jeep. You've met people like her, right? Those who seem to think the entire neighborhood revolves around them, that the HOA rules exist to fuel their sense of control. I could tell from the first moment I parked my Jeep that Karen, the HOA president, wasn't going to let it slide. She marched right up to the black matte vehicle like it was a criminal parked right in front of her house, clipboard in hand, flip-flops slapping against the pavement. "This vehicle doesn't meet aesthetic standards," she said, her voice sharp with the kind of authority she'd probably never earned. She wasn't wrong, though. It wasn't exactly your typical suburban vehicle. But what she didn't know was that there was far more at play here than she could even imagine. I wasn't just some guy parking his vehicle in a quiet neighborhood. I was part of a military operation, quiet, covert, and legally sanctioned. And that Jeep? It wasn't just a car, it was part of a high-level recon exercise designed to simulate a covert mission in civilian terrain. The kind of operation the public never sees. But Karen, well, she wasn't having any of it. Within an hour, she'd gathered enough of her neighbors to call an emergency HOA meeting. And when I say emergency, I mean full-on suburban panic. She called it Operation Remove Military Clutter, like the Jeep was some sort of bomb about to go off in their peaceful cul-de-sac. And it wasn't just that, it was the way she carried on, like she was the one protecting this neighborhood from some foreign invasion. I watched it all unfold, from a rented van parked down the block. My team and I were monitoring the situation, logging data, and observing the neighborhood's reaction to an unexpected military presence. All we were supposed to do was deploy a recon vehicle, watch how the locals reacted, and collect data for a week. Simple, right? But what we got instead was Karen and her little squad, practically creating a scene as if they were fighting off an actual invasion. By 3 p.m., Karen had escalated things further. A tow truck had rolled up, with the driver looking nervous, probably thinking this was just some suburban job he could knock out in 10 minutes. Not when Karen was involved. She briefed him like she was commanding a battalion. "Get this thing out of here before the next HOA meeting," she told him. But here's the thing. That Jeep wasn't just some thing to be towed away. It was a live surveillance relay system, part of a covert operation. If that Jeep moved more than 10 feet, it would trigger an alert that could shut down the whole operation. But Karen didn't know that. All she knew was that she was going to take control of this situation like she always did. That's when I had to step in. Slowly, calmly, I walked over to her, showing her my ID official, but stripped of any details that would give her the real picture. "Excuse me," I said, holding her gaze. "This vehicle is part of a federal operation." She looked at me like I was some kind of joke, laughing nervously. "Oh, really?" she said, folding her arms across her chest. "Well, I'm calling the cops." By now, I wasn't sure if she was just trying to annoy me or if she genuinely thought she was in the right. But I wasn't worried. The cops were already on their way, federal agents, that is. She just didn't know it yet. Then, something happened that I didn't expect. Karen, in her attempt to rally the neighborhood against the military, had posted a grainy, zoomed-in picture of the Jeep on social media, along with captions like, "This is how the military treats our community, and who gave this man permission to park a tank here." It wasn't even my Jeep at the time. I wasn't even in it. But the panic was real. People were taking pictures like they'd just spotted an alien spacecraft. The next few hours were a blur. Karen had called a full emergency HOA meeting, and by the time the sheriff's deputy arrived, The whole neighborhood was in full DEFCON mode. Even the deputy, a reserve Marine, had to play along, pretending not to know what was going on. But the real kicker came when he told Karen, "If you continue to interfere, you may be cited for obstruction." That's when her delusions started to crack. But Karen wasn't the kind of person who just admits defeat. No, she pivoted, telling the deputy, "This is abuse of power. This is intimidation." She was yelling at anyone who would listen. And then, after all of that, the worst part wasn't even the fact that she'd disrupted a military operation. It was that she'd started turning her entire neighborhood into a paranoid echo chamber. She posted more accusations online, getting everyone involved, turning them into amateur sleuths. People were questioning everything. Was the Jeep a military experiment? Were the government tracking them? It was like something straight out of a bad conspiracy thriller. By the third day, it had turned into full-on suburban warfare. Karen had transformed the HOA's Facebook group into a hotbed of conspiracy, with her followers calling for the military to intervene. And as absurd as it all was, her antics were starting to gather real attention. Her latest post claimed that the Jeep wasn't just an Icerite, was part of a military operation to normalize armed vehicles in civilian areas. I'll be honest, I almost couldn't keep up. It felt like I was living in a movie. And the weirdest part? Every time Karen made a move, every time she pushed her narrative, more data was being collected, data about how people react to misinformation, how easily paranoia can take root. Karen wasn't just a nuisance anymore. She had become a case study. By the time the authorities stepped in, it was too late. The damage had been done. Karen was officially ousted from her position as HOA president. But that didn't stop her. No, she kept pushing her narrative, even reaching out to fringe conspiracy podcasts, claiming she was the victim of a government cover-up. But here's the thing. Karen had crossed a line. Her actions had escalated things in ways no one had anticipated. She'd gone from meddling HOA president to self-proclaimed hero in a battle that only existed in her mind. And now, as I sit here, reflecting on everything that happened, I can't help but wonder, was Karen the real villain? Or was she just a pawn in a much bigger game? What do you think? Was Karen just a victim of a misunderstanding? Or did she create the chaos herself? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and share if you think this story deserves to be told. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story on Store of Good Stories. If this story touched your heart or made you think, don't forget to hit like and share the video to spread this positive message to more people. And if this is your first time here, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the meaningful stories we share every week. Your support is the biggest motivation for Store of Good Stories to keep bringing heartfelt and valuable stories to you. See you in the next video.